Welcome to Frap Rap. I'm your host, Aaron Goldman, aka AG, and the artist formerly known on AOL Instant Messenger as GDogg with 8 Gs. Yes, 1 through 7 were taken. 25 years ago, I was an AE at an ad network called L90, and my biggest client was Starcom IP. Every Thursday, I'd invite everyone in Chicago, 35 West Wacker, to meet me across the street at the Cozy for coffee, and for each person that came, I'd do a freestyle rap about them. Hence the name, Frap Rap. Each episode, I track down another OG IPer to reminisce about the good old days and see what they're up to now. And my guest today is Amanda Grasham. GHammy, welcome to Frap Rap.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
I am doing good. This is so fun. It's been great catching up with folks. Super cool to have you on early in the season as an OG IPer. Where are you at the moment, like physical location?
I am currently in Indiana visiting my family for Father's Day, so still live in Chicago, but on a quick trip here.
Very good. Cool. Well, then we won't have to like unpack the background too much because
No.
it might not give us any interesting clues. But before we get to like life and family and all that good stuff, let's teleport back to the IP
Let's
days.
do it.
So, when did you start, and what was your role at that time?
I started in July of 2000. Came in, of course, as an associate. There was a huge class at that time starting that summer. So I came in as an associate. I was trying to think back to my first account. So I believe it was Discover. So I worked on that as well as many other accounts because at that time we were kind of floating. I was, kind of floating amongst brands.
Yeah, and you were part of Vogel's class and that kind of original crew.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So we went through,
Yes.
training together, the whole nine yards.
Yeah. So yes, and July of 2000 is when I started at L90s. Our offices were like literally 2 blocks away. I think like the Cozy was like right. Actually, I don't know if it was the Cozy right when we started. That might have like Cozy might have come a couple years in.
Yeah.
It
I
was like
was,
their new innovation, right? The squiggle, the square bagel.
yes. I missed the
Um,
squiggle.
but but I remember. I mean, at the time when I first started, I was just a sales planner. So I was like there were folks like Kerry Fox and Brad Piggott,
Yeah.
Paul Simmons, Chris Carlson, of course, was there. He was like he was the email list broker. Matt Spiegel, of course, was who had hired me. But as a sales planner, like my job was just to like get IOs off the fax and like enter them into the to the system. I didn't have an expense account, so we were just like I was like anytime one of our reps would take you all out, like I would like go along to hopefully like get a free meal because we were living on
Oh
entry
yeah.
level salaries.
Oh yeah.
But then, fast forward a couple years later, got promoted to AE. All of a sudden, I got the expense account, and then I would really splurge at Cozy for like my tab would come to like $42, and I'd have entertained like 20 people. It was the best bang for the buck. All right. At any rate, okay. Did you have any idea, like, where'd you go to school? What did you study? Like, was it crazy for you that you ended up like in this role at that place?
Yeah, I have kind of a fun story about it. So I went to Indiana University in Bloomington. Had a great time there. I knew that I wanted to do something in my mind creative. So advertising was something that was really of interest to me. At that time, IU didn't really have an advertising program, so you had to cobble it together. So I had a telecom degree with a business minor. And, senior year rolled around. I didn't really, I was trying to interview, wasn't quite sure where it was going to take me. But it just happened my next door neighbor was the sister of PJ McGregor. And so I told her I'm interested
Wow.
in going into advertising. And she was like, well, that's what my brother does if you're interested. He works for a company called Starcom in Chicago. I had never even been to Chicago. So I was like, well, I'm happy to talk to him. And he came for a visit in Bloomington. We sat down and he was like, so what are you interested in when it comes to advertising? I was like, well, I want to, be a creative and this and that. He was like, well, I don't really do that. It was like, well, what part of advertising? What type of media? And I was like, well, I really love music, so maybe radio. And he was like, no, I'm not going to get you an interview for radio. And so he guided me in the right direction and got me the interview at Starcom IP. And, uh, you know, the rest is history.
Do you remember like your progression? I was trying, my org charts that I have saved
Oh my, wow.
are from this are from like 2005. So we have a little bit of catching up to do
Yeah.
between those years. And actually, wait a minute, are you even still on here in '05 or had you pieced out? I don't
Well,
see you on
here's the
here.
thing. I was a boomerang. So
Okay, all
I
right.
worked there for a couple years and then I left and resurfaced back in Starcom IP at the end of Starcom IP, actually. I guess that would have been in 2000 and what would it have been? Five, maybe? So probably right after
Okay,
you got that
okay.
org chart.
So uh, from Discover, what accounts did you work on? When you left, where'd you go? Why'd you come back?
So I, on Discover for a little bit with Ellen Agnew, Ellen Lingle now. She was who I
Shout out.
reported into. From there, I was trying to remember. I worked on VeriSign. And do you remember VeriSign?
Well, VeriSign was the owner of Network Solutions,
Yes,
right? Was that the
yes, yeah.
connection?
So it was
Yes. Oh,
VeriSign Network
yes.
Solutions.
Yeah.
And I believe Shelby was my manager then. And I think she was right after that. She was promoted to AMD. And then I worked on Kellogg's. So
Okay. Yeah.
that was with Brandon Starkoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Kellogg's, big, big spender brand account, which was probably fun to work on as opposed to like Netzel, which was all DR.
Yes. I got a lot of experience there, the first couple of years. And, with Kellogg's, it was amazing. It was just white space, right? So we were just kind of making it up and with these ideas and just bringing, I look back at it now and I'm like, wow, those were really very cool projects that we did. So for Corn Pops, we did a Choose Your Own Adventure webisode series and just really interesting things. But yeah, having both the DR experience and big brand experience was super helpful for me.
Yeah. I was talking to Vogel about Lego when she worked on that, and Alfie.com was one of the sites we repped. I'm pretty sure we got Kellogg's on Alfie
Yeah,
at some point.
I'm sure.
Alfie was kind of like this weird, like kids' land with the little like islands that you could go around to. And it was just so for like the dissonance for me on like, selling a campaign like that, which would be like a, custom integration, 3-digit CPM, and then like go over to the NetSol team and be like, hey, I got some clicks for you. Who needs some clicks?
A little
Great
bit of
ROI.
everything, right?
Yeah. All right. And so then when you first left, why'd you leave and where'd you go?
So I actually went back to Bloomington to take some additional classes. It was one of the I had worked a couple years at Starcom, and I just wasn't. I hadn't quite closed out everything that I wanted to in Bloomington, and so I actually went back to the School of Music and took a full semester's worth of classes within audio engineering because it was something in the back of my mind I had always kind of wanted to do while I was there, but I was already far down the road for advertising. So I took those classes, and in the middle of the semester, I was like, well, I don't know if this is for me. I'm glad I got it out of my system. But what was great about that experience is I realized I missed Chicago. I missed my friends, and I actually missed the work of digital media. So I came back with a new appreciation, I think, for it. So when I moved back to Chicago, I went to a different agency for a little bit, but then boomeranged back to Starcom IP.
Was it OMD?
Yes, yeah. So
Okay.
they were just starting their digital group. I went over there for a little bit. I felt bad about it. I have no regrets because I met wonderful people over there as well. But I came back. I came back home to Starcom.
A lot of people in the early days, IP was such a rocket ship. And
Yeah.
so the idea was your career progression is just to move from like cell to cell, on the org chart, like from, IC to associate manager, associate director,
Yep.
director.
Yep.
And then what was at the top here? Managing director was Marshall, even
Yes.
out of, he had the cell to himself at the top of the sheet. But like at some point, people started to realize, wait, hey, there's actually like there's more in this universe than IP and working my way up through this.
Yeah.
And you were one of the first people who left, but then came back, which you had a you could take a little taste of the grass on the other side,
Yeah.
maybe coming back and saying, hey, it's not as green as everybody thinks. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but was that kind of the vibe?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I felt like, again, it was another chapter I had not completely closed at Starcom. And, at that time, there was just an opportunity back at Starcom. And I mean, still to this day, I walk into 35 West Wacker and I feel like I'm home. So it was an easy jump for me to go back, and that opportunity was wonderful. And then I met a new round of IPers. A lot of the people that I had started with in Starcom IP had left, so it was an entirely new generation of Starcom IP. And like I said, while I was there, the brand IP went away, so we were absorbed into all of the brand teams. But met another new crew, which was wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I still have my Rolodex from back in the day. And when you get into the
Wow, this
S's,
is really impressive. I think you and Aaron Vogel are like the anthropologist of digital media. Oh, look at that.
yes. So here you are. And one thing that I did on everybody's business card, because we didn't have like Salesforce
Oh
and where
my
you would like type your
God.
notes and stuff, but I write in the bottom where I met you and in what context. So
No
can you see that?
way. Call with Brad.
11:30.
Polaroid. I forgot about Polaroid. That is
Yeah.
hilarious.
So Brad, L90, I guess is what those letters say. So I was at L90. Do you remember who Brad was at
Yeah,
L90?
yeah, I do.
Uh, Brad Piggott, you dig the pig. He had some great one. So as like an aspiring sales executive, Brad was a great person to learn from. He had all these great lines. Because L90 was an ad network, right? So we'd have all these sites that you could sort of choose from. And I remember one time he was on the phone with someone. He was kind of like leaned back in his chair. And he's like, I don't know what he was talking about. He's like, listen, I'm not going to sell you bagofshit.com.
I love that. Yeah,
His other
it
one was,
worked.
I know you're busier. I know you're busier than a one-armed paper hanger. You know, you really got to like unpack that. And okay,
You're
yeah, I guess
taking
that person.
notes, right? As this is going on, you're like,
That person would be very very busy. All right, so you're back for your second run. How long was that second run for, and when did that end?
I think that was 2 or 3 years, and that ended in
Okay.
2007.
Okay,
Yeah.
and where'd you go from there?
I went to iVillage, which
Okay.
was under the NBC umbrella. So worked with Brenda Cohen, whom I know you know
Eh,
very well, and Hillary Hawker from Starcom IP. So, that was a nice extension and a very gentle way of me getting into sales.
was Christine over there at Schmidt Ryder?
She wasn't
Was she
there. No,
iVillage?
no, we
Okay.
not at that time. I think
Okay.
she was before my time when I was there.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. Those were like the SEMA days, right? Christine was
Yeah.
like the founding
Oh yeah.
president of SEMA, Chicago Interactive Marketing Association.
Yep.
And so they would have like epic holiday parties. Do you remember any of those?
Oh, well, vaguely, I guess, but yes, I do.
Right. Yes. No one really
But
remembers. They remember that they
you're
happened, and
right,
that was about it.
exactly. I mean, I had a blast at those. It was like a mandatory party. You could not miss those parties because it was just so fun and much smaller. It felt huge, to us, but looking at SEMA now, it's incredible. So, just really great memories and just seeing everyone. And it was like this, like a class reunion every year because all of the reps would come and you'd see everyone in one space.
And this was like we would get dressed up. I remember
Yeah.
like wearing a suit. I mean, now like I don't even wear suits for weddings. Like it's great to think about that.
Right.
I do have some fun pictures.
Uh-oh.
Those are digital, and I won't do a screen share and derail us here. But I do have some pictures from SEMA holidays back in the day,
I'd love to see
and
them.
yeah, well, so one thing we are thinking is we need to do like an in-person Frap Rap now that we've started launching this,
Yeah.
and we just need to get everybody back together in person. So everyone can bring Vogel could bring her box of props, and everyone can kind of like raid their photo albums, any relics you got. We'll have to make that happen.
Yeah, I have a
Do you
memory
have
book.
a
I wish I had it now, but I have a memory book of the first 2 years at Starcom. So just all of these random things and pictures in that. So I'll bring
You
that
didn't
along.
bring it with you to
I
for
forgot
this
it for
weekend. You don't
this. I'm
travel
so
with it.
sorry. Yeah,
It's
no,
all good.
it's locked away at a very
All right, so
safe
you're gonna have to
place.
rack your brain though. Give us one of your favorite memories. It doesn't. It could be from any time at IP.
I mean, the apartment crawls, of course, stand out. I don't know, like the parties that we would just randomly have as a group, just internally. We would go out, to a bar, and I'm sure. Do you remember Life's Too Short? And, those
Oh yeah.
bars. So Life's Too Short was definitely a hang for Starcom IP in those days. So those parties were always great. I was thinking about this, and for some reason, I vividly remember one where it was like our first round of major promotions for the group, and everyone was just so happy and excited for one another. And those are the type of memories that really, not to get sappy, but those are the type of memories that really stand out for me.
Back to the apartment crawls for a second, and of course we'll do our lightning round,
Yeah.
which we affectionately call the apartment crawl. As like a rep on the other side, and you maybe you experienced this when you went to iVillage, and all of a sudden you're like calling on the people who were your like best friends. Um, that dynamic of and I was one of like the lucky ones who got to like be a part of the apartment crawl, but like that sort of like core group as everyone sort of moved through the industry together. And of course, oh, look at us now doing all amazing things. But um, there was like that feeling, and in some ways, it's hard to remember. This was like obviously pre-COVID, right? But like especially at that time in our lives, we were working. It was 12-hour days, like
Yeah.
all we knew, our whole social life, everything revolved around work. So whether it was apartment crawl or friar tucks or even like the 30 minutes we would get to cozy to do like a frap rap, like it all just sort of blended and blurred in a way
Yes.
that like doesn't kind of happen in today's world between Zooms and hybrids. Of course, we're at an advanced stage. We don't have to say ages, but we're at an advanced stage in life where we have other, things going on. But like when you think back about like IP and your experience there, how would you characterize it? I'm sure it was formative, but like, what was it? What did that sort of instill in you, and what was unique about IP compared to other places you've worked since?
I think that, I mean, it was lightning in a bottle, because number one, we were starting something from scratch. So that just in and of itself makes it so unique. And, working with that particular group of people at that particular group of time was magical. We're kind of learning together on the fly. And I think what made it so unique is that not to bring sports into this, but a sports reference, it was like we were playing free. Um, Rashad trusted us, Jeff trusted us, PJ trusted us. Everyone had trust in one another that we would, if we needed to, because we were playing foosball all day long, work until 10, 11 o'clock that night. We were going to get the work done. Again, I did not, a lot of us didn't even have compute, not to, the age thing again, but we were learning the internet. We didn't have it,
Mhm.
any of that in college and so on. So we were just learning together, and we created something. It was really kind of laying a foundation for what was to come.
Amen. Yeah, that I like that playing free. But we'll use some like sports
Oh
analogies
no.
too, of
Oh boy.
course. And even Marshall talking about like the just sort of that misfit energy that was embraced,
Yes, the
and I think
misfits.
that was like you said, lightning in a bottle. Like it was partly I think unique to IP at the time, also partly unique to just uh, internet at that time. It was this emerging medium, and so if you didn't have the license or the leash to sort of explore and try and test and fail, but then try again, you weren't going to succeed. So that almost had to become the ethos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, and okay, so now fast forward, like what are you up to now? And what are you like excited about professionally?
Yeah, I'm taking a break actually right now. So I spent 6.5 years at Triple Lift most recently. Taking a little bit of a break right now, and hoping to jump back in here soon. So I'm really excited for what's to come. Everything is still changing, right? I mean, that's the constant in what we do, is that it's constant change. So I'm excited to see where that journey takes me, and what my next chapter will be.
And what would be like the ideal setup for you?
Um, Starcom IP, something like that. No, I don't know.
Can we do it again? Reboot it?
No, I mean, really, I mean, it's one of those things where it's almost like, you play for a team your rookie year, you win the World Series. And so you're always chasing that, right? You always want to work with good people. And at the end of the day, that's what I crave. I want to work with good people and do work that matters, something that I'm really passionate about, and just feel like we're all striving towards a common goal.
Right on. Yeah, well, and the IP bonds run deep. People have sort of maneuvered now through the industry, and the um, what do they say? That your network is your net worth, right? So
Yep,
like those bonds become strong, and as you move from agency side, sales side, back somewhere in between. The relationships are kind of what carry you through, and so
100%.
I'm sure in as we move toward maybe by the end of this season. I mean, this season's going to be probably 100 weeks long based off of like the last org chart I have. I've sort of been ticking away at folks like you remember CBA, Chicago Bagel Authority.
Yeah,
Yes, they're like the menu, and you try to like work your way through the menu and check off each one you've tried. So I'm
forgot all
doing that
about
now
that.
as wake my way through here. But
Love it.
you're airing early in the season, and so we'll do a revisit towards the end and a recap and debrief.
Love it.
The so for for the apartment crawl round, I don't know. Do you have? I know you're not at home, but did you find a solo cup? All right, good. Um, so this is like our version of the lightning round,
Okay.
and so before we get into it, though, and this might be the same type of situation where like some memories either are gone into the ether, some are probably not fit for sharing on a public podcast. But do you have any appropriate memory from an apartment crawl that you could share before we jump in?
Well, I have something interesting in my possession, and that is a videotape of the apartment crawl. I have not watched it since I don't think I've ever watched it, but at that time, again, I wanted to be, in the creative realm. And so I had this video camera, which, people would laugh at today, but I carried it around everywhere. And I filmed a lot of stuff, including the IP apartment crawl. So I might have to dip into that and see what could be shared. Maybe I could send you a clip or two,
Definitely do that, and we could do a
or
special episode.
or maybe not. It depends
Right,
on,
let's
yeah.
watch it first. We'll screen it, appropriately filter. That's wild. So I don't remember this. It must have been like a big like we
No, it
obviously
was
weren't
like a
recording on our
little
phones back
handheld.
then.
Yeah, it was a little
Okay.
handheld. So it wasn't like, the I'm
Yeah.
not
And
that
this was
old.
before the days of like social media and cancel culture where we would have been like scared to the
Yes.
bejesus out of anybody walking around there with a camera. So
Um,
people like let you record and were they
yeah,
chatting that? Oh my, that's
absolutely.
wild.
Yeah. So I
When's the
did
last
that.
time you watched it?
I don't know that I ever watched it. I think I just
Do we know
tucked
for
it
sure
away
that like it
safely,
survived? Is
and
it on like an actual like
it's on.
it
I
wasn't digital, I assume.
I have to get probably a couple of adapters because it's on those
Okay.
little,
Yeah.
cartridges. But yeah, so
Right.
I need to revisit that. It's one of those things where it's like, when you're, I think it'll be great to see it, but sometimes you look at that stuff and you're like, oh, my voice or whatever. But I'll check it out and I'll see what I can share.
Amazing. All right. Yes. Let's do that. We'll run a special episode. All right. So solo cups in the air. Cheers. We're gonna
Cheers.
begin our apartment crawl round. Um, First question is, what was your aim handle?
So it was GHammy that you see here. The question mark is my birth year, and I chose not to share that year. But it was
Sorry.
GHammy was a
It was fun.
nickname.
Why did we do that? Like we all, we put like now it's like first of all, we not to put your birth year and things because like people will like guess that as like your password or something.
Right.
But like, was that just because? I mean, I guess when we were young, like it didn't matter. Why were we doing that?
There were other people that did that for sure, and I have
Yeah.
no idea. Like, I guess just because you needed a number, whatever, that was important to you or something. But yeah,
Yeah. You should have just gone like GHammy with 8 M's or something.
I should have. I know. I should have, 8 Ys at the end of it there.
All right. All right, back. So speed round. Aim handle was GHammy. Um, first boss at IP.
Ellen, I was on the Jeff
Oh
Marshall
yeah.
team. PJ McGregor was the AMD, and Ellen Lingle was my
Yep.
manager.
Favorite client.
Uh, let's see. I mean, Kellogg's. Kellogg's was fun. They let us do a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah. Battle Creek, right? Is
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
that HQ? Did you go up there a bunch?
I didn't. I was, I was the lowest
Okay.
man on the totem pole. I did
Yeah.
my first business trip was to Boston for Polaroid, though. If that doesn't date you, I don't know what will. But yeah, I went out there with PJ.
Wild. Um, if you could have worked on any other client at IP, which one would you have loved to work on?
I always kind of wanted to work on the Miller team. Like they were having so much fun. Sunil was on that team. Tim Harris. It just, it was mostly about the vibes. But I wanted. They seemed to be having a good time over there.
Yeah. Popular answer for sure. I'm still waiting for someone to say Philip Morris. Maybe maybe we'll get there at
Yeah.
some point. Okay. Present company excluded. Who was your favorite rep?
Present company excluded, but Michelle Ball was my very first rep meeting, and she
Yeah.
kind of like us. She was learning at the same time, starting at the same time. She took me to Wrigley the first time, and I went to her wedding. We've stayed in contact. So there were I want to say though, there were so many great reps, and that was an extension of my family and friends in Chicago's. So I would definitely
If I'm
say it
not
was one.
mistaken, and I hope Michelle's listening to this. We actually worked together for a little bit when she came over to Mediaocean, Michelle
Oh
O'Donnell
yeah, that's
now,
right.
and yeah, um, and I didn't actually bring this up with her at the time. I didn't know I'd be doing this podcast, but hopefully she'll watch. Maybe we'll do a rep
Yeah.
like season
Oh,
two will be like the rep stories,
that would
and
be
we could,
fun.
or maybe we'll just do a special episode for her. But if I'm not mistaken, I actually think she had her birth year in her AIM handle too, and I
She
think she
might
was
have.
Missy Ball.
Yes.
And then we won't say the two digits, but I think she was Missy Ball and then the two digits. Does that
Yes.
sound right?
That's it. That's
Amazing. Oh my
it.
God. It's so funny what sticks with you, right? The most like
I know.
random thing. All right. Shout out, Michelle. Okay. Do you have a hot take on AI and advertising?
I think what we're using it for today is not what we're going to be using it for in 10 years. I think there will be so much regulation and it just evolves, right? So it's hard to uh, predict where AI is going, but I don't have a super hot take on it. I just think that, again, kind of like digital media, we're at the tip of the iceberg. And if you had told me that I could tap into a DSP to activate a plan instead of Xeroxing IOs, I'd think you're crazy. So I just think that in 10 years, it's going to be completely different than how we think we're using it now in the industry.
Yeah. And, there's all this talk about um, AI taking people's jobs and what's all going to mean. And again, back to that parallel with digital, like,
Yeah.
my job at the beginning of my career was, yeah, it was literally like pulling IOs off the fax, entering them into the ad server, sending out the reports,
Yeah.
invoices. Like that's all been automated now, but like, there's the job just changes. It doesn't like go away. It just moves up level to something more strategic, different ways.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I,
that's
I
it,
think we all
right? To
just
be
need to,
more
yeah.
strategic. And I don't think that it's going to replace like the sales rep. I think there may be fewer, but I think that it'll evolve into working with the reps that you trust and that you have that relationship at the end of the day. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's probably where it's headed.
People, trust, and relationships
100%. It never
is
changes, right? I mean, that's what it
yep,
was in the
yep,
beginning.
yep. Awesome. Amen to that. All right. So to close out the show, it's time for the Frap Rap. So if we
Yes.
were back at Cozy, I'd be working in whatever you were wearing that day or whatever you ordered or whatever the weather was. But since we're not in the same room at Cozy here, I need you to give me some keywords to work into my freestyle. I don't know if you have anything you can write with, or actually what Vogel did is she just started holding up like props and I was rapping about them. How do you want to play it?
Well, I have a few here. I've X'd out one of them because I decided to replace it. But I got Discover. Sorry about the
Okay.
typer. Legacy and Cozy.
Uh-huh. Discover, Legacy, and Cozy. All right. Hold that up again, will you? I'm gonna make it
Can
a
you?
little bigger. Yeah. All right. Just keep it right there on the side so I can see it. Wait. Keep it up. Wait. What did you cross out? What did that say?
Well, I was going to share another memory of the apartment crawl, which was
Okay.
I hosted flaming Dr. Peppers at my teeny tiny apartment. And so, anyway, I was going to give you flaming too. But yeah, that was that word. But I replaced it with cozy
Okay.
since we didn't get to
All right.
flaming Dr. Peppers.
All right. Cool. I can dig it. All right. So, Discover, Legacy, Cozy, and we're not getting into flaming. All right. Cool. All right. Here we go. Here we go. AG in the place to be. It's not cozy and it's not Miami, but it is here with my girl GHammy. She's at IU. Go Hoosiers loud. Gonna say it proud. Football champs. Ho, ho.
Hey,
And we were back in the day. We had a legacy that would look our way. We would take it back and we would take it forth. The IO would come from one and go to another, and we'd be from like a brother, another mother. I don't know how we got from here to there, but now it's here and now it's very clear that we wave our hands in the eye with the ROI, and we wave our fans, and we would shake the band, and we would do that shit all across the land. Take it from me, all AG, G-Dog with 8 Gs. When I would get to Cozy, I would get the squiggle, I would get up in line, and I would take that little strip, and it was mighty fine. I'd be so full when all the food came out. When that last IPer left, I would have to shout, peace out, and we'd come back for the other thing I left on the table was that client that you did when you were back and willing and able. And the first time that you started, you looked at Discover and you might get carded. And then you pull out your Amex. And if you did that, then you couldn't cash that check. GHammy, thanks for hanging out with me, AG, representing Ol' IP. Word up.
woo! Nice job.
I,
That's
I had to
amazing.
maneuver
You
there,
still got
but we
it.
landed
You
the plane.
still got it.
Still got it. Well, thank you for giving me the material. Thank you for coming on the show. It was so awesome to catch up.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone who tuned in to Frap Rap. We'll see you on the next show.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Mediaocean Podcast Network. For more of our shows, visit www.mediaocean.com/podcasts.
Quick epilogue to the episode here. A few folks that came up when we were talking, unfortunately, are no longer with us, and felt like it was important to acknowledge them. So Brandon Starkoff, Hillary Hawker, rest in peace. We were also talking about um, our friends over at OMD, and so of course Sean and Leslie, always in our hearts. So just wanted to give a mention and let everyone know we're still thinking about them, their families, and sending love.
Absolutely. Lots of wonderful memories and lots of love to them.